Aries. A group of people are whispering about you right now. You are not in the room. You haven't done anything dramatic recently, and yet your name just came up in a low voice, followed by that pause. You know that pause, that slight shift in posture, that look exchanged between two people who both know exactly what the other is thinking. They say you are the dangerous kind of smart. Not the helpful kind, not the charming kind, not the kind that makes people feel warm and included. The dangerous kind. The kind that sees too much and says too little. The kind that doesn't need to raise their voice to change the entire temperature of a conversation. The kind that makes people nervous just by standing still, and they are telling each other to stay. Under the radar around you, to keep their distance, to watch what they say, because around you, pretenses drop like bad acting in a poorly lit room. There is this moment they realize they couldn't read you, couldn't predict you, couldn't put you in a box they already understood. And that shift, that realization happened in quietly, without announcement, without confrontation, but it happened. And now here you are, standing in the aftermath of something you didn't even start. You've probably felt it for a while, that strange creeping awareness that people treat you differently than they used to. Conversations get shorter around you, not because people don't want to talk, but because they don't want to be seen. Yeah. Jokes that used to land suddenly feel forced, like everyone is trying too hard to be casual and failing. You get invited to fewer things, not because you did anything wrong, but because your presence changes the room in a way that people find unsettling. They cannot put their finger on it, but they know something is off. You don't perform warm the way they expect. You don't fill silence with noise. You don't pretend to be interested in things you find trivial. And that, more than anything, is what makes them nervous, because they cannot tell what you are thinking. They cannot tell if you are judging them, analyzing them, seeing through the stories they tell themselves. And the not knowing for people who rely on social, occurs, and performances to navigate the world is unbearable. So they whisper, they pass along warnings. They say, be careful around that one, they're too smart. They see too much. And they say it like it's a flaw. Like intelligence is something to be managed, controlled, kept in check, but what they really mean is, do not let them look too closely. Don't let them ask the questions that make the whole structure wobble. You remember the first time someone called you intimidating. It probably caught you off guard. You were not loud. You were not aggressive. You were not trying to dominate anything. You were just quiet, present, aware, and somehow that was enough to make people uneasy. You didn't threaten anyone. You didn't challenge anyone openly. You just stopped performing, stopped pretending, stopped filling the gaps with empty chatter. And that, to people who live behind masks, is the most threatening thing of all, because silence, real silence, is not empty. It's observant. It's active. It's listening while everyone else is busy trying to be heard. And people who survive on performance panic. When they feel seen without permission, they need noise to hide behind, jokes to deflect, opinions to assert, movement to distract. But you don't give them that. You let silence sit. You let moments breathe. And in that space, people start revealing things they never meant to show, their insecurities, their fears, their carefully hidden inadequacies. You didn't expose them. They expose themselves simply by trying to fill the space you left open. Imagine walking into a room where everyone is shouting to be heard, and you just stand there calm, saying nothing. Who do you think everyone starts watching? The one shouting or the one who doesn't need to? Silence that doesn't seek attention becomes gravity. It pulls focus. It makes people adjust. And that's what you do without trying, without effort, just by being yourself. You make people aware of their own noise. You make them aware of their own performance. And that awareness is uncomfortable because once you see the performance, you cannot unsee it. You start noticing how people change their stories depending on who's listening, how they adjust their opinions to fit the room, how they seek approval from the loudest voice, not the truest one. And once you see that pattern, you cannot pretend you don't. You cannot go back to the comfortable ignorance that most people live in. That's what separates you. That's what makes them whisper. They tried to test you at first. Everyone does. Sorry, everyone does. Little changes disguised as jokes, subtle GD digs, comments, meant to provoke a reaction, a defensive outburst, an emotional misstep they could see against you, could use against you. But you didn't bite. You didn't escalate. You didn't defend your ego because you don't have one. That needs defending. You just watched. You let them show you who they are, who they were, and they did every time. That's when the whispers started. Not because you attacked, not because, but because you didn't react the way they expected. They couldn't bait you. They couldn't rush you. They couldn't manipulate you with guilt or fear or pressure. You saw the strings, you saw the setup, you saw the ending before they even started. And once people realize they cannot control you, they start avoiding you, isolating you. Not because they hate you, because they are afraid of what you see, because around you, their tricks stop working. Their charm loses its shine. Their confidence, which they thought was solid, starts to feel hollow. And nothing is scarier to a person who's built their whole identity on performance than the quiet realization that someone can see right through it. You might have noticed the shift in how people look at you, the hesitation before they speak, the way they choose their words more carefully, edit themselves more thoroughly, backtrack when they realize they have said too much. You might have noticed how invitations have become less frequent, how conversations that used to include you now happen just out of earshot. You are not imagining it. It's real. And it's happening because they have realized something that changes everything. Engaging with you is a losing move. They cannot win. Not because you are aggressive. No, not because you attack, but because you see clearly, and clarity destroys illusions. And for people who live in illusions, that is a threat they cannot afford. So they whisper, they warn each other, they say, stay under the radar, don't let them see you, don't let them notice you. Because once you're on their radar, you cannot hide, you cannot pretend, you cannot go back to the comfortable fog of not knowing. And that's terrifying because most people don't want to see clearly. They want to believe their own stories. They want to believe they are smart, they are kind, they are important, that their opinions matter, that their lives have meaning. And you by simply existing, by simply seeing what's there, threaten all of that. Think about the last time someone called you too much, too quiet, too intense, too serious, too smart for your own good. They said it like it was a criticism, like you were supposed to apologize for being who you are. But what they really meant was, you make me uncomfortable because I cannot keep up with you. You make me feel exposed because you see through the stories I tell myself. You make me feel small because you don't need the same validation I need. And instead of examining their own insecurity, they projected it onto you. They called you the problem, so they wouldn't have to look at themselves. That's what people do when they are afraid. They attack the mirror, They blame the reflection. They try to dim the light so they don't have to see their own shadows. But you didn't dim. You didn't dim yourself. You didn't shrink to make them comfortable. And that refusal, that quiet refusal to be less than you are, is what made them whisper. Because once you stop apologizing for your intelligence, you become something they cannot ignore. And once you become something they cannot ignore, they have to deal with you. And they don't know how. So they whisper. They warn each other. They say, don't engage, don't challenge them, don't give them a reason to look at you. Because if they look, they will see everything. You might ask yourself why this feels lonely sometimes, why you feel out of sync, like with people around you, why you cannot just relax and enjoy the small talk, why you cannot pretend to care about things that don't matter. And the answer is simple. Intelligence. Intelligence separates before it elevates. When you see deeper, you cannot pretend anymore. You cannot unsee motives. You cannot laugh at things that no longer make sense. You cannot play dumb because to make others comfortable forever. And you pay for that in isolation, in misunderstanding, in being labeled too much or too quiet or hard to read. But here is what they didn't expect. Your silence didn't weaken you, it sharpened you. Every moment you spent observing instead of reacting turned into leverage. Every time you walked away instead of arguing, you learned something about them. Every time you stayed calm while they were emotional, you gained ground. You became the one variable they couldn't predict. And in systems built on control, unpredictability is powerful. It's a powerful thing. Not because you are chaotic, but because you are independent. You don't follow the script. You don't dance to their music. You move accordingly to your own intent internal compass, and that's something they cannot calculate. Imagine a group of people who have spent years perfecting a maze. They are proud of it. Yeah, they guard it. They act like it's the most complex thing in the world. And then you walk in, glance on it, at it once, and quietly point out the straight path through the middle. No drama, no bragging, just accuracy. The maze loses its power, and so do the people hiding behind it. That's what you do. You cut through the complexity that others use as camouflage. You see the simple truth underneath all the noise, and that's unforgettable. Unforgettable to them because they survive on making simple things feel complicated. Endless jargon, endless meetings, endless frameworks that say nothing. Confusion is their shield. Claw clarity is your weapon. And once you use it, they cannot pretend anymore. The illusion cracks. Their authority crumbles. The hierarchy, which was built on people not seeing clearly, collapses. And that's why they whisper. Not because you are wrong, but because you are right. And being right in a system built on lies is the most dangerous thing you can be. They don't call you smart as a compliment. They say it like a warning. You heard it wrapped in fake concern, soft voice, titled head. That one's too smart for their own good. As if intelligence is a defect, as if clarity is a disease, as if seeing too much is somehow the problem. What they really mean is simple. Your mind disrupts their comfort. Your awareness messes with their control. Your clarity collapses the little games they depend on to stay on top. You don't play along, not because you are difficult, but because you can see the strings. And when you see them, you cannot pretend you don't. You cannot go back to the comfortable illusion that everything is fine, that people are honest, that systems are fair. You know better, and that knowledge isolates you, but it also frees you. Yeah, it all frees you because once you see the truth, you cannot be fooled by the lies. And once you cannot be fooled, you cannot be controlled. And once you cannot be controlled, you are a threat. Yeah, real threat. So they whisper, they caution each other, and they try to contain you. Not because you are dangerous, but because you are free, out of control. This is the moment where you realize something important. They are not afraid of your strength. They are afraid of your mind. They can handle physical power, social power, even financial power. Those things can be matched, countered, or both. But they cannot handle a mind that sees through their illusions. They cannot handle a mind that doesn't need their approval. They cannot handle a mind that's willing to be alone rather than be dishonest. That's a kind of power they cannot touch, and that's why they warn each other about you. Not because you attack, but because you don't miss. Not because you are loud, but because you are precise. You don't waste moves. You don't speak without purpose. When you act, it's clean, final, thought through. That's why even your stillness feels heavy to them. It carries intent, it carries awareness, it carries the quiet certainty that you know what they are doing and you're not impressed. And that, more than anything, is what unnerves them. Think about the last time someone tried to manipulate you. Maybe they appealed to your guilt, tried to make you feel responsible for their feelings. Yeah, maybe they tried to pressure you with urgency, make you decide before you had time to think. Yes, maybe they tried to flatter you, hoping you'd be too distracted by their praise to notice their request. And you didn't fall for it. You saw the setup, you saw the angle, you saw the outcome before they even reached it. And instead of reacting, you just waited. You let them dig themselves deeper. You let them reveal their hand. And when they were done, you simply said, no. No. Not angrily, not defensively, just no. That's when they knew they couldn't touch you. That's when they started whispering, because people who rely on manipulation to get what they want cannot handle someone who cannot be manipulated. It breaks their playbook. It undermines their confidence. It makes them feel powerless in the one area they thought they had control. And that's a feeling they cannot tolerate. So they avoid you, they warn others, they build a protective circle around themselves, hoping you will not breach it. But you don't need to breach it. You don't need to attack. You don't need to prove anything. You just exist, and the truth of who you are is enough to make them nervous. You may have noticed that people over-explain themselves around you. They justify things you didn't question. They defend themselves against accusations you didn't make. They tell you more than you asked for, more than they intended, more than they are comfortable with. And they don't know why they do it. They just know that when they are around you, they feel the need to fill the space, to account for themselves, to prove they are not hiding anything. But of course, the more they explain, the more they reveal. The more they defend, the more they expose. And you just listen, letting them dig their own holes, letting them show you exactly who they are. It's not that you are trying to trap them. No, it's not like that. It's that you are not providing the feedback they need to feel comfortable. You are not nodding along, not offering reassurance, not playing the role they expect. And without that feedback, they don't know what to do. So they keep talking, keep explaining, keep digging until they have told you everything you need to know. And then they walk away feeling uneasy, feeling exposed, feeling like they have been seen in a way they didn't want to be seen. And they cannot figure out why. They cannot figure out what you did. You didn't do anything. You didn't do anything except stay quiet and pay attention. That's it. This is the kind of intelligence they cannot measure. It's not about grades or credentials or titles. It's about reading the room, reading the people, reading the undercurrents that most people miss. It's about understanding that power isn't about volume, it's about timing. Timing. It's about knowing when to speak and when to wait. It's about recognizing that silence, real silence, is a form of language. And once you understand that, you become something they cannot predict. You become something they cannot control. You become something they have to whisper about because speaking openly would confirm their fear. They whisper now because they don't want to acknowledge you. They whisper now because they don't want to admit that you have already won, because the victory didn't happen with a bang, bang. It happened quietly. In the moment they realized they couldn't touch you, couldn't control you, couldn't manipulate you, in the moment they realized their usual tricks didn't work. In the moment, they realized they were dealing with someone who saw the game and refused to play it the wrong way. You might ask yourself if you should speak more, soften yourself, make others comfortable, and the answer is no. No. The universe sharpened your awareness for a reason. Your silence filters truth from performance. It exposes without attacking. It dismantles without force. That's why they call you intimidating. Not because you are dangerous, but because around you, they cannot hide. Around you, their masks slip. Around you, their stories fall apart. Around you, they have to face the truth of who they are, and most people are not ready for that. That's why they whisper. They warn each other. They say, stay under the radar. Don't attack their attention. Don't give them a reason to look at you. Because once they look, they will see everything. And once they see everything, you cannot pretend anymore. Think about the last time you walked away from a situation that felt wrong. You didn't make a scene. You didn't argue. You didn't try to justify yourself. You just left. And that silence, that absence, was louder than any confrontation could have been, because you showed them that you didn't need them. You showed them that their approval wasn't required. You showed them that the game they were playing was irrelevant to you. And that shook them more than any argument could have, because if you don't need them, they have no power over you. And if they have no power over you, their whole system falls apart. That's when the whispers started. That's when they realized they had lost. It's not because you beat them, because you didn't need to. You might be wondering why they seem tense around you, why advice turns into warnings, why good praise feels backhanded. It's because you are proof that their system is fragile. One clear mind threatens a room full of comfortable lies, so they labeled you, they caution others, they whisper like you are a hazard sign. Not because you are wrong, but because you are awake. And being awake in a world that prefers sleep is the most dangerous thing you can be. So here's what you need to understand. They are not going to stop whispering. They are not going to stop warning each other. They are not going to stop trying to contain you. That's what people do when they are afraid. But that doesn't mean you need to change. It doesn't mean you need to shrink. It doesn't mean you need to pretend to be less than you are. What it means is that you are on the right track. What it means that you are seeing clearly. What it means is that you are free and they are not. And that freedom is something they cannot understand, cannot control, and cannot take away from you. You've probably noticed the shift in their behavior, the way they avoid eye contact now, the way they rush through conversations with you, the way they don't change or challenge you openly anymore. That's not a coincidence. That's not you imagining things. That's them recognizing that they cannot beat you. That's them recognizing that engaging with you is a losing move. That's them recognizing that you have already won. And the victory, quiet as it was, is complete. You didn't need to prove anything. You didn't need to win any argument. You didn't need to assert your superiority. You just had to be yourself, and that was enough. Period. This is the moment where you realize that the whispers are not a problem. They are a confirmation. They are a sign that you are doing something right. They are a sign that you are not playing the same game as everyone else. They are a sign that you are operating on a different frequency, and that frequency is 1. They cannot turn, cannot buy, cannot pressure. That frequency is yours, and it's not going anywhere. You might feel alone sometimes. You might feel like nobody understands you. You might feel like you are speaking a language that others don't speak. And that's okay. Yeah, that's painful, but it's okay. That's part of the journey. That's part of of what it means to be the kind of smart that makes people nervous. But you are not really alone. There are others like you, others who see clearly, others who refuse to play the game, others who are willing to be alone rather than to be dishonest. And you don't need to fight, and you don't need to find them to know they exist. You just need to keep being yourself, keep seeing clearly, keep refusing to shrink. And I promise you, eventually, the ones who are ready will find you, your people, your tribe, and the people who whisper about you now will fade into the background. They'll become a footnote in your story because the story isn't about them. It's about you, my beautiful soul. It's about the journey you're on. It's about the clarity you are developing. It's about the freedom you are claiming. And that freedom, once you have it, is something they can never take away. So let them whisper, let them warn each other, let them build their little defenses. It doesn't matter because you are not playing their game. You never were. You were always playing something bigger. And that bigger game, the one that includes everyone who's willing to see clearly, is the one that matters. That's the game you are winning. And it's not a game you need to announce. It's a game that shows itself in silence, in clarity, in the quiet confidence of someone who knows exactly who they are and what they are worth. This is where it ends for them. Not with a bang bang, but with a whisper. Not with a confrontation, but with a retreat. Not with a victory, but with a recognition. They know now that they cannot touch you. They know now that they cannot manipulate you. They know now that they cannot control you. And that's why they whisper. That's why they warn each other. That's why they stay under the radar, because they know that once you are on the radar, you are not coming off. And that's exactly where you need to be. You are the dangerous kind of smart, not because you attack, but because you see, not because you dominate, but because you understand, not because you are loud, but because you are clear. And clarity in a world built on illusion is the most dangerous thing there is. So stay under the radar. Not because you need to hide, but because you don't need to be seen. Not because you are afraid, but because you are free. Not because you are invisible, but because you are undeniable. And the people who whisper about you now, the people who warn each other, the people who try to contain you, control you, they will never understand. They will never get it. They will never see what you see. And that's okay. Yeah, that's okay, because you are not doing it for them. You are doing it for yourself, for the clarity, for the truth, for the freedom, and that's the most dangerous thing of all.